For those watching now and later, thanks for attending the Spokane Jewish Cultural Film Festival and today's Q&A with Barak Heymann, the director of High Maintenance, The Life and Work of Dani Karavan. I am Neil Schindler, the director of the festival, and of Spokane Jewish Family Services, which is the nonprofit that organizes it. If you have questions or comments during the Q&A, as Matt and I were saying earlier, feel free to just unmute yourself and comment or ask in your own voice. So I'll quickly introduce Matt and Barak. Our guest moderator this afternoon is Dr. Matt Rindge, who joined Gonzaga University's Religious Studies faculty in 2008. He is the author of Bible and Film, The Basics, and Profane Parables, Film and the American Dream. His articles on Bible and film have appeared in many journals, and he has published over a dozen chapters in edited volumes. His articles on religion and culture have appeared in media outlets such as the Washington Post. And our featured filmmaker, Barak Heymann, has been directing and producing documentaries for TV and cinema for more than a decade. Heymann Brothers Films, the independent film company that he co-owns with his brother Tomer, has produced more than 20 documentaries. The company's films have premiered at numerous festivals worldwide where they've won prestigious awards. Barak teaches at several film schools in Israel and is currently engaged in a number of ongoing projects. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Matt and we'll go from there. Thanks very much to both of you.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. And I just think it's worth mentioning that several of the documentaries that Barak has directed have been nominated and have received awards, including awards at the Krakow Film Festival, the Moscow Jewish Film Festival, the Berlin International Film Festival, and his 2009 documentary Lone Samaritan won the Best Documentary Award at the Toronto Jewish Film Festival and was nominated for the Israeli Academy Awards. And so there's an extensive body of work that's been recognized and acknowledged by many different festivals. But today we're talking about High Maintenance, which I want to thank you, Barak, for making. It's a real gift. And there are a couple questions I want to start out with, and then we'll see where the conversation goes. The first question, I think one of the things that struck me most pointedly was a parallel that there seemed to be between the deterioration of Dani's art installations, which frequently elicit in him lament and consternation and frustration at their kind of, in his mind, dilapidated state. A parallel between that and the deterioration of Dani's own physical body and his mind in terms of his forgetfulness, his memory loss. And so I'd like to hear you reflect on the parallel between those two, and if Dani himself ever reflected on that or seemed to be consciously aware of the similar decline or state of disrepair between many of his art projects and his own physical and mental health.
So first of all, thank you very much for selecting the film and for inviting me here to this conversation. And thank you, Neil, for directing this festival in such a beautiful way. And I'm very pleased and honored that this film is part of the festival. I am happy that Dani was not aware of this equivalence, because what I'm trying usually to do is to kill the self-awareness of my main characters. If a character is too much aware of the symbolism that I am aware of, this is a very bad news for me as a director. And I want to add, on top of what you have said, which I'm very happy that this is how you start the conversation, because this is a very crucial element of the film. But I want to make it even a little bit more complicated and, for me, more beautiful and interesting, that I see it as a triangle of maintenance. It's not only the maintenance of his work, it's not only the maintenance of his body with the forgetfulness and everything, but it's also, and in a way, mainly the maintenance of our country. The horrible moral and political situation of our country. Because I can tell you that I used to talk to Dani or text with him on a daily basis for 3.5 years, from 2017 until the end of 2020. Almost on a daily basis. We used to communicate with each other. And of course, we used to talk a lot and also film a lot, things which are related to the poor level of maintenance of his body and of his body of work. But the one thing we would always talk about, more than about anything else, was about Bibi Netanyahu, because he hated him like crazy, about the occupation, about the racism, about the violence of the Israeli army and of the Israeli police. That was the main topic we would discuss, Dani and me. And this is for me, like this triangle is the core of the film in many, many ways. And this, yeah.
No, please go ahead.
And I'm very happy that Dani was able to watch the film before he passed away, which was not so obvious because he was already 90 when the film came out, and I wanted to release the film in a local film festival because I thought that this is the place where I should premiere the film, because there is something so Tel Avivian about the film. Dani was born in Tel Aviv. His father was the main, I don't know how to say it, gardener of Tel Aviv. Like he designed all the gardens in Tel Aviv. The film is being filmed in Tel Aviv a lot. I wanted to premiere the film in Dock Aviv Film Festival in May 2021. That was the main plan. But then at August 2020, August, September, when I realized that he's going physically into a direction when there is no way back, and he's not going to get better, and he doesn't have so much more time. I remember speaking with my brother Tomer and deciding and understanding and realizing that we will never forgive ourselves if I won't complete the film before he passed away. And then I speed up and I released it in Jerusalem Film Festival, which is a beautiful, great festival, which happened that year on December. So it was December 2020, exactly when he celebrated his 90th birthday. The festival was online, which was horrible for me because I don't like this online thing. I want to feel the people. I want to smell them, to hear them, to talk to them, to touch them. But that was the reality. And I got a very special permission, which was not even so legal, to screen the film in a real cinema, but only for 10 people. Parallel to the online release of Jerusalem Film Festival. And this is when I invited all the Karavan family to show them the film, because I wanted them to watch it on big screen with great sound system and not online. This is ridiculous. And then they came to the cinema, and I was, of course, very nervous because they haven't seen it before. And it's already online, it's out there, there is no way to change anything. And I was very scared what Dani will say, because this guy is a crazy guy. And when the screening ended, there was a silence, the lights came up, and after a few seconds, which felt to me like forever, Dani said something that Chava, his wife, told me later that she never heard him saying to anyone in any kind of context. Barak, he said, I wouldn't change a thing. And to hear something like this from Dani Karavan, it's a very big compliment. And then after the screening and the conversation with the family ended, I invited everybody to a place in Tel Aviv to celebrate the premiere of the film. So many people have worked on the film, and so many people helped me, and people were part of this journey, part of this production. So I wanted to find a location to celebrate it that is connected somehow to the film. So the one thing which made the most sense was to bring them all to the cultural square, because it was just 5 minutes walk from the cinema. But Friday noon in Israel, there is no shed. How can you celebrate with your friends when there is no shed? Because Dani, who made the square, did not think about shed. He doesn't care about the shed. So I couldn't invite the people. So I decided to go to the white square, Kikar Levana, which is 10 minutes drive from there. So we all went there. We were like, I don't know, 40, 50 people with kids and friends, and people who were part of the production. And it was a beautiful, beautiful kind of a party. But Dani and Java couldn't make it. Dani was already kind of sick, and it was too much for him, and he just went home to sleep. But then I got a text message from him, and it was so exciting, and I want to read it to you, because that was, in a way, his reaction to the film. And I'm trying to see if I find it here, because it says so much about how he looked at the film and what did he see there. So he said something like this. I will try to translate it to you. He said, I was very excited, and it took me time to recover. It's a very moving film, full of love. I was happy. I was surprised, though, that you didn't know what Guernica is. This is the most important piece in the art world, which is very political, about the civil war in Spain. I will need to teach you soon a lesson in art, but I keep thanking you for making it and for everything. Thank you, my friend. Yours, Dani. So
that's lovely.
Yes.
Yeah. Barak, since you mentioned the third piece of the triangle being your country, and Dani's thoughts about it, one of the earliest statements Dani says in the movie is, he says, my art is political. And the human rights lawyer, near the very end of the film, when they're having a celebration of Dani's work, he says to Dani, you're a politician. What would be Dani's sense of how his art is political? And then what is your sense about the ways in which his art is political?
Well, I'm so happy you bring it up, because this human rights defender, this human rights lawyer, Michael Sfardi's name, when he was talking about the political aspect of Dani's work in this big event, it was an unforgettable moment. He made me look at Dani's work in a completely different way. He made me realize how political Dani was and how political was his body of work, more than I understood and felt and felt by myself before, I admit. And this is why I love this man so much, because when someone helps you to look at reality in a different glasses, in a different perspective, in a different point of view, this is unbelievable. So his sense about why his art is political, it's because his art, and this is why you find his art as a site-specific, huge, crazy installations in the nature, which you don't have to pay money to enjoy this art. You don't have to go to the museum and to wait in the line. You are just living inside his art. So there is no border between the art and the life. Because in general, I think there is art which comes from life and there is art which comes from art. I personally much more attracted to the art which comes from life. And I think it's connected and related to your question, because once your art is coming from life, and if you are not blind, and if you are brave and honest enough to realize that life is full of happiness and beauty and satisfaction, but at the same time, full of so much ugliness and frustration and injustice and crimes against humanity all over. Look what's happening just right across the corner. I'm in Warsaw, in Poland right now. Like I can almost, like, you know, hear what's happening in Ukraine. So once he brings all these political horrible things which are happening around him to his heart, and while his art is coming from his heart, then there is always going to be some kind of connection, like he did with Walter Benjamin, like the fact that after 48, after what the Jewish people say independence war, and while the Palestinians are saying the Nakba of 48, the catastrophe of the Palestinian people, he was one of the very few people who was portraying, drawing, painting the uprooted Palestinian villages. The Palestinian villages which were just abandoned by people that escaped from the Zionist forces. And it is something that showing so much about his instincts. It was not intellectually, it was emotionally. And this is what I find so political in his work. It's not coming from the intellect, it's coming from the gut feelings. And yes, some of his work, you could say there is nothing political about it, which is true. But you know, life is not black or white, 1 or 0. I am personally myself, Barak, very, very political, and I'm going to demonstrations all the time with my kids, and I'm talking about politics. I'm arguing with people about politics. I'm losing friends on Facebook on a daily basis because the things I'm writing there. And yet, at the same time, you can find me in many situations along the week when I'm just having fun or doing my things or walking and not caring about politics. So does it mean that I'm not political? No, life is a mix. So for me, what makes him be so political is the fact that he's not ignoring the reality. The reality comes inside of him. And then it comes out at sometimes in some of his works. And I love him for that, because he was never chicken. He was never a coward. He always said what he wanted to say. And I can tell you that I know personally many artists in Israel who think not so different than me, but don't allow themselves to say anything. And then this is why what part of the reason why I admire him and even adore him so much.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Rosalind, why don't you unmute yourself and share verbally both your comment and your question.
Thank you. I wanted to start by saying that I actually just finished viewing the film before this discussion began. And so it's very much in my view. This film is one of the most beautiful aesthetically and important for political reasons and many other reasons that I have ever seen. And it is truly a gem and a gift, as you said earlier, Matt. Then I wanted to ask regarding the political aspects of Dani's art. I'm interested in knowing more about the project that was to be in Poland, honoring those righteous Gentiles who saved or protected Jews during the Holocaust, and what happened with it. And we had a bit of the information, of course, from the conversation he had with the director of Yad Vashem and so forth and so on. So I'm just interested in knowing more about that.
It's very sad, everything about Poland right now, because I am in Poland right now. I'm talking to you from Warsaw. I came here today, just 1 hour ago I arrived, because tomorrow I'm going to meet the Polish Film Institute, who are partners in this film. And they were very, very, very disappointed from the film because they said it's an anti-Polish film, which is, I think, completely ridiculous. And this is just to show you where the politics are heading nowadays. And it's related to your comment, because Dani at some point decided, or maybe he was not the one who decided about it, someone else decided for him, that the man who was supposed to finance this whole production, that basically they better not deal right now with the Poles, because they were afraid that they will manipulate the creation and will take it into the wrong direction, not what Dani meant. So this work have never happened and will never happen at the end of the day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments.
It's disappointing to hear that their take on the film is that it's anti-Polish.
Yes.
That seems to come from such a place of insecurity and yeah.
But for me, it's of course a big deal because I need this money. I was counting on it, and it's a big problem. But what can you do? The political world is going more and more right, and less and less progressive. Everywhere. Everywhere. You can see it in your country as well. With all the respect that Biden took Trump position, in many ways, when Obama and Trump and Biden, many things are the same.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Like let's even say, look, Biden is now talking all the time about Putin and about how horrible what Putin is doing, and that it's going to end up in a world war. Why doesn't he talk like this about the Israeli occupation?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of which, how have Israelis received and responded to the political aspects of Dani's art?
Most of them, I think, in a very warm and positive way. But you know, maybe it's because it's like Facebook. You read only the people that think like you. So the people who care about Dani's work are the people who love, or the people who are upset that there is no shade in the culture square. But in general, people like his agenda and respect it. But I'm sure that there are people who don't. I mainly met the ones that respect the fact that he's loyal to his inside ethics.
Yeah, he clearly has a conscience internally that is a profound kind of guide for him above and beyond criticisms that he hears externally from other people.
Yeah.
So you said early on that if the subject of your film was as aware as you are, of some of the different dynamics. And this was about the parallelism of the deterioration, that it would kind of ruin the film, kill the film. Why is that? Why is it important for the subject of the film to not be aware?
Look, then again, it's not 1 or 0. It's not that you're aware or not aware. There is a spectrum of different kind of levels, of different kind of awarenesses. But in general, I want my subject to be a hero, to be a subject. And I am the one who needs now to deal with how to portray it and what is the balance between all different kind of elements of the film. And when the subject is starting to look at himself or to look at herself from outside, then their behavior cannot be authentic and transparent anymore. And then they become less interesting.
Mm.
You want people to be who they are and not behave in a way that this is how they want other people to remember them or to look at them. Because then it's not fun. And you know, when Dani is getting pissed with this poor Polish waiter,
Yeah.
he doesn't bring him the check on time.
Yeah.
It's a funny moment. If he was
Yes.
aware, he would not behave like this, because this is a ridiculous way of behavior. What do you want from the poor guy? Like, what's your problem?
Yes.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, there were many moments
yeah.
like that. Like the scene, I was really taken with the scene with his daughter when she's drawing the hearts, and he's talking about how his work means more to him than anything else in his life. And this produces a real moment of tension with the daughter that Dani is very comfortable with, at home with.
Yes, and look, it's very easy and funny to analyze a film when it's ready and to think that, wow, every moment is so great. But for every moment like this, I was capturing 45 boring moments when nothing happened. So I picked up only the good ones for you not to get bored while watching the film. And yeah, this moment with his daughter was a beautiful moment. But I have to say that in an absurd way, this moment is very honest, but it wouldn't happen if I was not there. I don't think they would talk exactly like this. And I think they, in a way, in that moment, he was aware of the fact that the camera is there.
Mm.
But since it was so funny and so deep, I decided to keep it in the film, because it's a great moment. But it's interesting that you mentioned this moment, because many people refer to it in those Q&As I'm doing like all over the world in the last year, because people say, wow, how you capture such an intense, intimate moment. But for me, it wasn't so intense, because only people who love each other so much can allow themselves to talk like this to each other.
Mm-hmm,
you know?
Yeah.
So for me, this scene is an indication of a great relationship between them. This is how I see it.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Near the end of the film, Dani says, talking about his art, he says, "This work is my daughter, my son. I created it." And there are a couple moments in the film where Dani seems to want his works to last forever. At one point, he says, "These works will stay here forever." And when he's talking to Wim Wenders, Wenders says, "In 1,000 years, when we are forgotten," and Dani interrupts him. And he says, "No, we are never forgotten. Never. You and me, we will never be forgotten." And I was struck by the ways in which, like, people sometimes will try to achieve immortality through different means, like their children who can live on after them, because death ends us. And I think for Dani, there seems to be a way in which his works of art are vehicles of immortality for him, as a way where he can survive death. Did you pick? What do you think of that? Yeah.
I think it's very touching. I think it's very human. I like it. I like it that he's very transparent about it. He wants to be remembered, and he wants to be here forever. And if he cannot be here forever with his body, he wants to be here forever with his creations. It's a very megalomanic and very, very authentic and sincere way. And this is why I like it so much. And you know, in a way, I could feel the same. It's not the same, but it comes from the same place. I want to believe that in 200 years from now, somebody will watch this film and will enjoy it. And this thought is exciting me. Of course. And if I will find out that the subtitles of the film are not correct, or the colors are not as I want them to be, I will freak out.
Yeah. If the aspect ratio is changed by Netflix.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that helps us understand the frustration Dani has over the decline, disrepair of some of the art projects.
Yeah.
If he sees them, understands them as a continuing life for himself.
Yes. And I think it's true for almost everyone who is putting heart in his work. It's not only about artists, you know. I don't know. You can be, I don't know, restaurant owner. Okay, you put all your heart in this restaurant, and somebody comes and then I don't know, destroy the table, and you're pissed because you want it to be in a different way, and you can get angry and you can be upset, and it's fine. It has to be like this. It would be strange if he was cool about how those city halls and all those places are not treating well enough his work. Only in Germany they treat it well. You saw it in the film in Nuremberg.
Yeah.
And also in Villa Lem with Wim Wenders. In Germany, they keep it as it has to be. And by the way, also in Japan, but we were not in Japan because it could not fly. But in most of the rest of the places, especially in Israel, but not only, also in France, he was not happy at all. And I can totally understand why.
Yeah, it made me think that, you know, some artists, when they produce their art, for some artists, there's a sense in which they no longer own that art. You know, the art goes into the world, it becomes its own entity. Dani doesn't seem to feel that. He still seems to very much feel ownership of his art after it's created and produced.
Yeah.
Barak, what surprised you the most during the filming of the documentary, in terms of something that either unfolded, happened, or you discovered that you were not expecting?
I think there is something very beautiful and young about his relationship with his wife, Chava, which kept surprising me. Like, he always calls her whenever he goes everywhere, and he truly and authentically feels like sharing with her everything which happens to him. And there is something beautiful about it. I am not like this. I don't have any need now to call my girlfriend and to tell her, wow, I had this Q&A with this festival in the States, and Neil said that, and Rosalind said that, and Matt, you know. I experienced this moment, and I don't need to now tell her about it. But if I was Dani, I would call her. You don't believe it. They asked me this and they asked me that. So that was something funny, and also it was surprising how sensitive he is, and how no matter how famous you can be, how successful you can be, how you can still remember the little stupid anecdote in one little stupid critic someone was writing about you 10 years ago, and still like hold it so heavy in your heart. And it's something universal and interesting. It was surprising.
Clarify that second bit again, Barak. That's the surprising part was that
I thought that when you are reaching the age of 90 years old, and when you are reaching such a high stage of success, you can be, or you should be, more cool about the criticism. Like said, oh man, I did my thing. I'm good. I'm fine. People love me. I'm successful. Some people don't like it. Okay. Like for me, if someone now from your guests in the festival would say, the film, I saw better films recently, I would not be happy about it. Like I would be even hurted in a way, and I would be sad. But I wouldn't make a big deal out of it, because I received enough great feedbacks from many people for many years in many places. So okay, but Dani would freak out.
Yes.
And it's funny and it's sad and it's mainly human.
Yes, yeah. The first scene I think I remember Dani and Java being together was they're standing near the doorway and talking about his visiting the doctor, and you can tell the chemistry between them is so clear. And when they're sitting at the table and Dani is talking about dying and death, that at one point she says, let's stop talking about this, but he says that he wants both of them to die together because he can't imagine living without her. I mean, that's a very moving, I think it's very telling of a certain kind of intimate bond that he has with her.
Yes. This is why it's in the film, yes. And I don't know if the audience know, but last May, Dani passed away, and he's no longer with us, and I miss him terribly. He was literally a very good friend. I enjoyed talking to him. It was fun. I love him. He was very, very special human being.
Barak, what are, in these different interviews or Q&As you've done, what is a question that you have not been asked that you want to be asked, that you would want to be asked by people interviewing you about the film?
Wow, very interesting question. There is a question that I keep being asked, but I usually don't say the truth about it.
Okay.
So maybe the question you refer to is, Barak, tell us honestly, why did you make this film? But the honest answer.
Well, first tell us the answer you usually give.
Okay, so I say that we were in Italy, me and my brother, in screening of our film, Mr. Gaga, about Ohad Naharin and Bakhtiar's company, a film I produced and my brother Tomo directed. And in the end of the screening, which was a very beautiful screening for 1,200 people, a woman came to us, the daughter of Dani Karavan, and said, beautiful film, but what about my father? And we said, what about your father? He said, why don't you make a film also about my father? Which is true, it all happened. And then we didn't really know why to make a film about him. So my brother told me, just go and make a short interview with him and see what do you feel about him. And I made a research interview with him, and I was amazed by him, by his charisma, by his nervousness, by the fact that in the same time he's so annoying and so arrogant, but also so, I don't know, sensitive and generous and beautiful all together. And I said, wow, this is a great character for a film. So this is what I always answer, which is 100% true.
But what's the real honest answer?
The real honest answer was that after this interview, yes, I did fall in love with him and I did think that he's a good character, but I was not convinced that there is a film here or how to make it and why to make it and what do I have to do with it. Like, I was not very enthusiastic. But then I spoke with the head of one of the film funds in Israel, and since Dani is such a big name in Israel, he said, come, I believe we can find the budget for your film. And then when I was talking to the person who was in charge for documentaries in the public broadcasting channel, they also said, come, we believe there is budget for your film. And then I found myself with, I don't know, like nearly $200,000 on the table without even working hard at all to get them. And it felt stupid to give it away. I said, okay, I have the budget, let's make the film. But I didn't know why. I didn't understand why I'm doing it and how it can be interesting. Now I love the film and I cannot imagine my life without Dani and without the film. But
yeah, sure. Thank you for your honesty.
Yes.
Yeah, Rosalind, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Did Dani suggest the title High Maintenance as or did you arrive at it collaboratively, or what happened?
No, it was my idea.
Okay.
Which I'm very proud of. I didn't even tell him, I was afraid of his reaction. He only knew about the Hebrew title, which is simply Dani Karavan. Just Dani Karavan. And I'm not even sure if he understood the double meaning of the title in English, and that I make fun of him also. I'm not sure if he understood it. And I didn't find any motivation to explain it to him.
Well, there again, it would have created a self-consciousness on his part, which didn't want to have happen.
Exactly. You're a great student, Rosalind.
I'm trying, I'm learning.
Yeah.
Neil, were there any questions that you wanted to ask Barak?
You know, I don't have any top of mind. I mostly just, I spoke with people on our selection committee who said that they aren't necessarily big art people, but they were pulled in by the politics. And they said the same thing might happen in reverse for other people. In other words, people who aren't big politics people, but they're interested in art. So that I think that in that way, this is more a comment than anything else, that the film has more to offer than maybe, I don't know if there is such a thing as your typical sort of profile documentary where it mostly follows one person, artist or whatever. But I do think that that is an interesting mix, because for me, I am interested in art, but I'm even more interested in politics. And so there was plenty to, I do have one question. So this year we had several in our festival, several films that are now being called, I guess it's trendy by festivals, mid-length, right? So they're not the conventional feature length, which is 80, 90 minutes or more. And they're not a short, which most festivals seem to regard if it's 30 minutes or less, like 30 minutes is a long short, but mid-length. And so I'm wondering how you came to the length that you chose, because it's, you know, still relatively idiosyncratic, at least in my experience, to have it that length, but maybe it's a trend. We've had several this year that are that length.
Nothing about trend, just what is the best film I can create. This is the only thing I care about it. And it can be 50, it can be 100, 70, 80, 90, 60, it doesn't matter. It needs to be a film which I love. It cannot have even 1 second which I cannot justify. And this is after editing it for years, basically. This is what I came out with. I couldn't care less what is the length. I just wanted it to be as good as I can get. Yeah.
Well, it sounds
there are beautiful moments outside of the cut that sometimes I show to people when I have physical screening. Amazing scenes that I didn't put in the film because I didn't find a place for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
There were a couple of lines in the movie that struck me. One of my favorite filmmakers is Guillermo del Toro, and del Toro says that simplicity is the most difficult thing to capture in art. And there's a very similar line that Dani makes in the film when he's talking about the value of simplicity and the difficulty in conveying it and capturing it. At one point, I think he says simplicity is the most complicated thing. And another line he has when he's talking with Wim Wenders is about the value of emptiness. You know, emptiness as beauty.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a way in which your documentary also is a reflection of that kind of simplicity that Dani speaks of?
I want to believe so, because I am a big admirer of simplicity in a way that, you know, the film, I love the film, and it took me years to create it and a long process. But when you look at it, there is something very basic and simple about it. You know, there is nothing like extraordinary about it. Emotionally, it's grabbing you, but also the way it is shot, it's beautifully shot. But you know, I don't like drones and all those stupid things now everybody are doing. Like, I don't care about it. You know, also the graphics inside of it, it's simple. It's not pretentious. And this is what I like about this guy. And the same goes with my previous film, Comrade Dov, about the Knesset member, Dov Khanin. That there is something also very simple about the guy, how he presents himself, and also about my filmmaking style, which can be deep and simple at the same time, I want to believe. Yeah.
Some of the visual shots I appreciated the most aesthetically were there was almost no sound, and it was just Dani alone in the frame at one of his installations, sometimes facing away from the camera.
Yeah.
A very quiet, still, calm space in which I felt invited into the art.
Yes, I'm happy you say it, and I wish my cameraman would hear it, because they did a very a beautiful job, because it was obvious that you cannot show those kind of beautiful creations in a lousy way. Like you cannot destroy it. It will be very uncool.
Yeah, Rosalind.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to say that for me, Dani's creations are both simple and complex at the same time. And when I first started watching the film, I was drawn in almost immediately, but with each of his artistic creations, I was drawn in more, got much more emotionally involved in the creations and his relationship to the creations, and it intensified for me as the film continued. It was it's brilliant, really.
Nice. I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah, I was very moved by the Sinti and the Roma memorial,
Yeah.
the dark water. Yeah. So
Yeah, the guy knows one thing.
yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Barak, what are your current or next film projects?
So my new project is about ultra-Orthodox Jewish kids practicing capoeira in Bnei Brak. And the same time, I'm also having now a new kind of job, a new kind of position as the head of the film department in a college outside of Tel Aviv, Bet Bern College. Yeah, so I'm busy.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again so much for this film.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a real gift. And because I think you captured the spirit of this man who was both arrogant and cocky and 100% confident of his thoughts about almost everything, but also so fully human, and caring about people and the other and our treatment of the other. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm happy you like the film, and I'm happy about this conversation, and stay in touch whenever you come to Israel. Then it will be great to have a coffee with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time, Matt, and of course also yours, Barak. And I, as the director of the festival, I really have been able to enjoy so many of these conversations, and I'm just, it's just wonderful to be able to welcome filmmakers from all over the world. So thanks to both of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day / night where you are, Barak. I'm sure it's pretty late.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Toda.
Bye.
Toda rabah.
Thank you.
Lahitlaot.
Thank you.